Hello and welcome. This is Off the Bench, a podcast about women's sport, and my name is Cliona Foley. It's a podcast that we hope will educate and entertain people of all genders and ages. And you can stay in touch with us today on all of the Off the Ball social media channels and also on our own Twitter account. Twitter is at Off the Bench OTB. That's capital OTB. We're here today. We're on the road, which is really exciting for Off the Bench. We're on the road and we're actually in the Liberty Insurance offices in Blanchardstown. Liberty are the sponsors of the All-Ireland Camogie Championships, and we're here to help them promote their Camogie Made Me campaign, which showcases how the skills that people gain on the camogie pitch, either as athletes and players, can be transformed into their own lives. Later on, we're going to be joined by a really top-class, and I think world-class panel. We have Mary O'Connor, who is the CEO of the Federation of Irish Sport, a 12-time All-Ireland winner herself. Nikki Daly, one of the fantastic Green Army, who reached the World Cup final in hockey this year. Marie Crowe, sports writer and broadcaster, and also Shauna Keogh, the producer of a brand new documentary on Cora Staunton. So before we start, we'd like to talk to Deirdre Ashe, who is the Director of Customs and Markets for Liberty Insurance. And particularly, Deirdre, hi, welcome to Off the Bench, first of all. Particularly wanted to talk to you about the Camogie Made Me campaign, because a lot of us have seen the videos on TV and have been really struck by them. So tell us about them.
Hi, Cliona. On behalf of myself and my colleagues here, I'd like to welcome your panel and indeed yourself. Thank you very much for hosting this event here. Camogie Made Me is part of a campaign that we've worked on in Liberty Insurance to really focus on our sponsorship and to enable, if you like, it to affect change in our whole challenge and campaign around encouraging women and their participation on and off the field in the sporting world. We know through our research that there's a huge drop-off, if you like, on the participation in those teenage years for young girls and athletes across the spectrum, not just in camogie. And so really what we wanted to do is showcase the adversity that a number of people have overcome through the skills that they have refined and developed on the pitch and how they've used that to great effect off the pitch. And so we have our ambassadors that you see on the wall there. Yeah. We've got Mags, Michaela, Colette, and Gemma, focusing on aspects of their life and how camogie enables them to overcome those things.
You've got some pretty good reaction to it already, I'd imagine. It's been running on TV.
Indeed. Well, we worked very closely with our advertising partners to give it some good visibility on those high coverage events, and on social media, it's gained a lot of traction as well.
Yeah, and if anybody hasn't seen it, just to let them know, you can also find it on Liberty Insurance, who have a sports hub online, and you can go into their sports hub and find it.
That's right. #SupportYourSport for our hub, where you can see all of that. And it's interesting. We've also used it this year to showcase again our commitment to camogie itself, which we'll come on to in a moment, but to encourage a number of clubs to focus on this aspect of what are the skills that those young teens want to hone on and off the pitch. And where we'll get a chance to see them over the coming days, Cliona, is at half-time in the senior finals on Sunday. We're going to see two teams participate there. One is Newmarket-on-Fergus, the other is, they're from County Clare, of course, and the other one, Cork club, yeah, which is Sarsfield, and we'll see both of those teams compete. The winner will take home €7,000 and a lesser amount for the runners-up. But that's, again, to go into the club committee kitty for much-needed funds.
And you've just renewed your sponsorship of Camogie for 3 years. So just tell us, why is that? What do you feel that you've got from it and you've given to Camogie?
So women in sport is something we feel very passionate about in Liberty Insurance, and this comes back to our mutual heritage. It's one of integrity. It's one of what change can we drive for the good. And we realise that there is a lot of change that we've seen in recent times in national and international sport in the participation of women on and off the field, as we've said. Really, it needs a pillar, and the pillar for us that works incredibly well is our association with the Camogie Association. So what we're doing is we're committing to a further 3 years. We're putting 2.5 million, which we've announced in June, into our overall Women in Sport fund, and that will be made up of our sponsorship, which is very important to us with Camogie, as I've said, but also, more importantly, research to understand what trends and insights are emerging and how can we affect further change for greater good in the whole sporting arena.
And trends and insight and, you know, developments in women's sport is something we feel really strongly about on Off the Bench, so that's why it is really important to be doing that research. Thanks, Deirdre. We're going to have a look now, because the All-Ireland finals are just 5 days away. There's a treble header in Croke Park. We're all very excited about it. And we have some VT here, which Maura Trasney-Caddy captured for us with some of the captains on Sunday.
Fionnuala Carr, you've won the junior a few years ago. You've now made the step up to intermediate, and you've made the intermediate All-Ireland final. That's a huge achievement for County Down.
Yeah, huge achievement. We probably felt that we could have made the step up a bit quicker. Been back in the final from 2014, maybe 2015, 2016. But the players that we had in 2014, we had tried for so long to win the junior that whenever we got it, you know, girls had all the things that they wanted to do in life, like going travelling and have families and stuff. So we lost the core group of that 2014 team, and it took us a couple of years to regroup and get back to where we are today.
I'm joined by Kilkenny's captain Shelley Farrell, and yet again we've a Cork-Kilkenny All-Ireland final. I'm looking forward to it. I'm assuming you're looking forward to it, but probably not for the same reasons I am.
Oh, really looking forward to it now. It's great to be back in an All-Ireland final, and it's brilliant to get another chance at Cork now this year.
You say get another chance at Cork very politely, but there's a great rivalry between you two teams and between your two managers, which comes up to a great game for the neutrals. You probably don't care so much about that. You're just focusing on the game, though. What kind of game do you think it's going to be?
I think it'll be a very tactical game as usual, and there'll be a lot of matchups and a lot of space cut out on both ends, because the ability that both forwards have and even the backs are unbelievable. So obviously everyone's going to try and limit those abilities. So it's a great match, but we really are looking forward to it, and we're just hoping we can express ourselves like we have been at training this year.
Emer Keenan from Lucan Startils.
Brilliant, Emer. Now, All-Ireland final, yet again. You've had your disappointments along the way. This one, though, could be the one that you might shade it.
Yeah, last year was bitterly disappointing, coming out on the wrong side of the result, and fingers crossed this year we can come back and, you know, finish off what we started last year.
You're up against quite a unique opponent, though. I didn't actually realise that when it comes to Kerry, one club is actually their county team as well, and you could argue we could push them to one side, but they've some heart, and I think, was it last year you only beat them by 4 points, is that right?
Yeah, in the semi-final it was a nip and tuck game right up until the final couple of minutes, and we got, I suppose, a lucky goal that pushed us over the winning line. And then in terms of their one club, like, that makes them a very unique team, and, you know, strong together. Like, they've played Camogie from the beginning right the way up with each other. So yeah, they will be a tough opponent now.
So that is the junior final, which pits Kerry in their very first All-Ireland final. And Shelley Farrell, who you saw there, comes from an incredible family. 3 of her sisters, 3 of them are playing in the All-Ireland senior final. Anna and Meg are her 2 other sisters, and they're all starring for Kilkenny on Sunday. Now we can move on, and we're delighted to introduce you to our panel today. From my left, we have Shauna Keogh, as I said, producer of the Cora Staunton documentary, which is about to be released onto the world. We can't wait for it. Mary O'Connor, 12-time All-Ireland winner in Camogie and football, believe it or not. And unlike the rest of us who talk about sport, she can do it and she administered. She's the CEO of the Irish Federation for Sport. Next, I don't think this woman needs any introduction if you've been watching your TV in the last month. Nikki Daly, all hail Nikki Daly from the Irish women's hockey team. It's so fantastic to have you here, Nikki. And at the end, Marie Crowe, sports writer, broadcaster, and one of the most informed women in Ireland on women's sport. A sport of all kinds, but women's sport as well. So we have these, and we have a live panel. Welcome, everybody. Nikki, we've got to start with you. First of all, outside they were all saying, are we getting Britney mics? And we all have Britney mics on. But even better, tell us where you've been for the weekend, please.
I was down at Electric Picnic, so I left my voice down there, so forgive me if you struggle to hear me.
There's actually 2 people on the stage today who've been at Electric Picnic, and I'm not going to tell you who the other one is. You can guess it by the end of the programme yourselves. Nikki, I actually was reading this morning, are you going to the Auras as well?
We are, yeah.
When?
Friday.
So, Electric Picnic one weekend, the Auras the next. That's not bad.
Not bad.
We might get one of you to run for president, I think, in this next one. That could be the thing to do. What a lot of you won't know, and we could talk about the World Cup forever. We could do a whole programme with you about the World Cup, I think. And maybe just before we go on, was there one moment since the World Cup that really has touched your heart and just brought it all home to you? Or has it just been such a madness that you can't put your finger on any one moment?
I do remember the first moment when we were lining up in the tunnel. And I just remember there was a big, huge picture of the World Cup beside me. And I just kind of looked and I was like, oh, what's this? And it just got bigger. And it was just so big that I was looking at it. And, you know, I've been 9 years trying to get to this place. And we're just in the tunnel and getting ready to run out for the first game. And I just kind of remember thinking, oh my God, finally, we've done it, we're here. And I started to get really emotional as well. And I was like, oh, come on, you can pull yourself together here. You got to run out here and set yourself up. So, yeah, that was definitely a moment that I'll never forget. And
well, it was just an extraordinary moment. We were all taken on your journey. But what people mightn't know, our listeners and our live audience here in Blanchardstown and Liberty, is that you didn't want to be a hockey player. That wasn't your first aim in your sporting life. You wanted to do something very different from hockey. Tell us what it was.
I want to be a racing driver.
And explain to us why you wanted to be a racing driver and how you are now involved in motorsport.
Well, I grew up in a motor racing family. So my dad raced in Ireland for over 25 years. And my uncle was a Formula 1 driver in the late 70s, early 80s. So I was kind of born into it. And every weekend I'd spend with my dad down in Mondello Park, you know, watching his career. And I just couldn't wait. I just wanted to get behind the wheel, but it's such an expensive sport. It was so difficult at the time. He was busy sort of looking after his own career that I just never got the opportunity.
To do it at that level.
To do it at that level.
But in my research during the World Cup, I was really amazed to find out that you have a master's in motorsport engineering and you work in motorsport. So maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did engineering for my undergrad and then decided I didn't really want to go into any sort of the mainstream engineering jobs. So, you know, I had my passion for motorsport always there, and I thought this would be a perfect way to trying to get back into the sport. And it's something that I'm so passionate about. I watch it all the time. And I went on and did a master's then in motorsport engineering and then headed off to the States.
I'm presuming you had to go abroad to do that, did you?
Yeah, I did it in the UK, yeah.
Right.
There was none here at the time. So.
And where did your career take you next then?
So then I went over to the US and got a job as sort of an internship with an IndyCar team. And I've been affiliated with them ever since. I've been trying to balance hockey and working in the States for the last 2 years.
And are you actually physically working on cars? Are you working on the technical end of cars, or where are you working?
Yeah, I work as a data engineer, so I'm more on the computer. I tend to analyse all the data that comes off the car, so any of the suspension movements, engine parameters, aerodynamics, things like that. I analyse the data when it comes in, the car comes in, and then the race engineer asks me for some information, and then they make a decision.
If it's wrong, you're in trouble. Yeah. And if, it's such an unusual sport for a sport for anybody to be involved in, but how does it work gender-wise? Are you in a minority gender-wise? And what's the place of women for a start, I suppose, in IndyCar?
Yeah, it is. It still is quite a minority, and I'm only starting to realise that there is actually quite a lot more out there, but we just don't know about them. And there are certain things like Fuel the Female and Dare to be Different campaigns that have started coming out now that are exposing more of the women that are involved in it. But yeah, I mean, there is a gender gap there.
Even in the staff?
Even in the staff, yeah. I mean, I would be one of 2 girls that work in the IndyCar team. And
of
the other
what size?
Maybe 100 people.
Wow, right,
yeah.
Okay. So you're forging a trail there as well. And we've never seen, has there ever been a Formula 1 female driver? There has been in IndyCar.
Yeah, no, there has. It was a long time ago. You've had a couple of test drivers line up as well, but in the last maybe, 50 years, there hasn't been anyone really significant to make it to the top level just yet.
So how do you combine that work with playing hockey for Ireland? And are you going back to America?
Yeah, I head back on the 17th of September. I just tend to take sort of time off when maybe the hockey program isn't too intense. So from now till Christmas is sort of our off period. And then, just join back up with the racing team and just balance it as best
And when
I can.
you're in America, can you play ball?
No, I can train, I can run, and I can do sort of stuff on my own, but there's no club hockey over there, so I'm kind of limited.
Did you coach over there at some point?
I did. I helped out a college team down there, so
right.
I could do a couple of training sessions with them, but that was about it.
Right. So it is a very, very unusual area to be working in. We've heard that the Irish women's hockey team are getting 500,000 from the government, which is a drop in the ocean considering that the UK men's and women's hockey programme had, I think, 8 million to bring them into the last World Cup so that they could work. Basically, it allowed their men's and women's team to train full time. So 500,000 is a drop in the ocean, Nikki. But what do you think needs to be done now in terms of helping you to move on to the next stage?
Yeah, I think it's obviously been fantastic to hear, the announcements for extra funding, and it's exactly what we need. But I think now that we've moved from 16th in the world to 8th in the world, our long-term goal is that we want to sustain that place. We want to stay there and not drop back down. And it's hard to put a figure on what maybe that looks like, but I think what's important is that we start to put sort of an infrastructure in place that we can allow this team to continue to grow and develop when this team has sort of moved on. Yeah. And so, we're ranked 8th in the world now. We're one of maybe 1 or 2 teams inside the top 10 that aren't professional. So I think we need to sort of establish some sort of a semi-professional, if not professional, setup within the sport to help maintain our position and help the future of the sport grow.
And before we move on, you did one lovely thing since the Hockey World Cup down in Mondello Park with, I think, a gang of your Irish teammates were down as well. So here's Nikki in the car. Can you explain to us what you were doing and what Formula Female is, something that you've set up?
Yeah, so a friend of mine and myself, we grew up together watching our dad's race, and we've always been really passionate about it. We've always wanted to get behind the wheel of the car, and she just came to me a couple of months ago and was like, come on, we're doing it now. We're 30 years old. It's about time we got behind the wheel of a car. And
did you not say, hold on, I have a Hockey World Cup coming up?
No, I said, yeah, let's do it, absolutely. And I said, but could I do it in memory of my dad? Because he passed away 16 years ago from cancer. So I was like, if we can do it in memory of my dad, and let's raise money for the Irish Cancer Society. So we developed Formula Female, which is because we were an all-female racing team. And we were the only 2 girls to enter into the race out of a grid of 35. We didn't do too badly. We finished 7th and 8th for our first time racing.
Yeah, go girls.
But more importantly, we raised nearly €7,000 for the Irish Cancer Society. So it was Formula Female Race Against Cancer in memory of my dad.
And it's a beautiful thing to do. Yeah. And I suspect that we're going to see more of Formula Female, are we?
We are. We're actually racing next weekend again down in Mondello. So, another side to what Formula Female is to encourage more women into the sport if we can. We've already got a girl who's come on board, so we now have a 3rd driver.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it's kind of taken off, and we're hoping to continue to build Formula Female into the future.
Fantastic, because your profile through the hockey can also help that as well, which is fantastic. Yeah, and something we really noticed about the hockey team was how open they were to media, how much they did media, and they've said since that they felt that it was really important that they do that so that young girls can see the success and look to emulate it and take some part in sport at whatever level. Marie has a particular interest. You could call her stalker, I'm not so sure. But Marie is actually involved in a really interesting new project with RTE that you might tell us about and that Nikki is involved in as well.
Yeah, at the start of the summer, we decided to follow 5 female sports stars on their journeys for the summer just to see what they were up to, and one of them was Nikki, which worked out really well.
Good pick, well done.
I mean, we knew we were going to get to the final. It was all planned. So yeah, we've just been following Nikki, Sam Lambert, who plays football for Tip, Sarah Carey, who is the Limerick Camogie captain, Phil Healy, the runner, and then Orla Walsh, the cyclist. So they've all had very exciting summers, some highs, some lows, but what we did was we got quite behind the scenes because like with every sports star and athlete, like they have lives, they have sacrifices that they make, they have things that they have to juggle. So we just spent time with them on the field, off the field, got to know their families, got to know them, and then just kind of going to put it all together at the end of the summer and showcase what they achieved and also how they were able to do it.
How they do it. Because that's the amazing story is how you juggle your lives with sport, with elite sport at that level. And particularly because so many of you aren't necessarily professional. You're not professional. You're not getting paid a lot of money. It's got a great name, Marie.
Yeah, we run the world. So.
Yes, a bit like Beyonce or whatever, which one is it? So it's got a great title. And is it going to go out, and what format will it be in
it's
when
going
it
to be
does
on the
go
player.
out?
It's going to be on the player. So
on the RTE player?
On the RTE player in around October time. It'll go out, and maybe Nikki might come back again from America. We'll have to try and
I think you might persuade her home.
back.
And how long are the programmes? And
they're about 8 to 10 minutes. So this is kind of the start of the series. Like I think if it goes well, there'll be more of them, which is great because there's so many interesting stories. And you know, even with the Camogie, when I was driving over here, I was thinking about it. Like this summer has been amazing for Camogie stories coming out there. Like, you know, often you go through the whole summer and you can't really think of anything, but Dara, who works for the Camogie Association, has just been finding gems all summer. You know, we had Anne Dalton before the semi-final talking about her new baby. You know, Sarah Carey juggling her little baby.
Yeah,
you know,
we had Sarah on talking about her baby.
Like so many brilliant stories. It's been a really good summer for stories.
Dara Crahora has been doing brilliant stuff with the Camogie Association on that. So that's a really interesting new series. And what I was curious about was, like, how did you get that commissioned? How did you get somebody to say, yeah, we'll follow female athletes as opposed to male athletes, or a mixture of both?
I think it just, no matter what, Cliona, and you know this as well, like a good story is a good story, and like, you know, we had a list of about 10 and then we were looking at what was going on this summer and what would work and what might be good storylines, and like RTE are great for the women's sport, and they were all for it, and the player then, like, it's a whole new world technology wise, and they were game for it as well.
It's where the kids are watching stuff as well.
And like I think the last maybe year or 2 years, the profile of women's sport is, and the people behind women's sport has just gone through the roof. Like, even if you look here, like, you know, we've amazing women sitting here. Cliona, 5 years ago, I couldn't have envisioned that this would happen, that you'd have you going on the road, like, you know, showcasing a women's panels of sports. So I think over the last little while, people are starting to stand up and take notice. We're seeing more women. We're hearing from more women. We're seeing more female sports on television. This summer has all been about women's sports.
It's been so
the
much
athletics,
about it.
The hockey. You know, we've Katie Taylor. We've just had, like, and we're going to have the Cora documentary as well. There's just so many characters, and people are really getting behind it and getting interested in it.
And that's a great lead into Shauna, because again, the notion for us that you're making you've made a documentary about Cora Staunton for a start, but a really interesting aspect of Cora Staunton's life is fascinating. So tell us, first of all, how did the idea come about to make a documentary on Cora Staunton, and how did you follow that?
So I have a production office also in New York, so I would have worked a lot for ESPN and Fox Sports, and over in the States I do a lot of female development. So we're actually just talking about the level of professionalism that's involved in female sports in the US. So I would have been developing a lot with the women's soccer team at the time, leading up to the World Cup, and like likes the Carly Lloyd and Megan Rapinoe, and like with the tennis, Serena Williams. And when I came home, up for the match was on, and Cora was in the green room, and I went up to her and I said, God, has anybody ever, to me it was foreign to not have someone who was so decorated, who had not, even this was before she'd signed for Australia for the Aussie rules, and I'd said to her, has anybody ever approached you about a documentary? And I know she'd done inserts here and there, and I said to her, I'd love to create a documentary around you. So that was where the initial conversation started. And then about 3 months after that, I was on a production over in the States, and I'd seen that she'd got signed for the Aussie rules. So I gave her a call and I said, Cora, like, can we just start filming? And I said, for me, I have the ability, he said, to self-shoot and develop my own documentary. So I started filming with her, and Carnacun at that point were in the All-Ireland final. And so from there, I just started the process, knowing that the story itself was going to be amazing, regardless of what had happened before she went to Australia. You know, her story in general at that level of you know, the commitment she's given to the county and the team, but also as a female athlete, like, you know, just getting the recognition for what that is and who she is. And then on the back of that, then, again, getting recognition for a 1 hour female documentary, though, is hard.
Was it hard?
Yes, it's hard. And I was very lucky. I had the support of Liberty Insurance, who came on board and sponsored, and then TG Cahir commissioned the programme. But you know, up to then, I would have been self-funding the project because I believed in it. And I think with women's in sports, from my perspective, as I said, like, gender in my field too does come into play at times. And when I moved back from New York, the biggest thing I wanted to do was get more female airtime on national broadcasters and get that exposure that is deserved. Because I played football and I played camogie myself. And my commitment now, I'm not that old, but like, it's a few years ago now, just like carrying a knee injury.
Like us all, like us all,
that I played county, and I had the commitment, and I had given all my time and effort to.
So you had an understanding of the
I had a massive understanding of it, and then, like, you know, seeing it at that inter-county level and strength and conditioning and psychology and everything come into play. Like the women were given just as much.
Yeah.
And the talent is there. We just need the platform to put it out there. And the level that has to go out there as well. Like for me, as a filmmaker, especially with Cora's one, like that's gone into a feature-length documentary now.
Did it mean you had to go to Australia?
I did go to Australia.
Tough gig.
I know, yeah. I missed the snow.
Shauna.
No, it was, to be honest, it was absolutely, I couldn't have, again, like that, it was a female production team. It's that I self-shoot myself. So when we went out there, again, we're going into an elite environment. There's professional contracts involved. And the Sydney Giants, they were extremely welcoming to us. And to get the access at the level we did, but also to get an insight into what's involved to play at an elite level like that was just phenomenal. And also from Cora's perspective, I'm sure she'll tell you herself, like, to transition from someone who's used to scoring 1-9 or 1-10 a game to almost not getting the ball, it was a real thing.
That's an amazing narrative in itself.
Oh, it's fantastic.
For somebody who's a superstar to go back down to the bottom and accept that whatever's going to come here, I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
That must be brilliant. Huge part of it.
Absolutely.
And how long did you go out there and how long did it take to
well,
put
it was
together?
initially about 3-4 weeks was the initial shooting period, but like the Giants were doing so well, that at that point there was no way I was coming home without getting to the end, to be fair. And you'll see in the documentary, their league and how they went on and their transformation from film. I think they finished second last year to getting to the semi-finals this year. But also out there, Australia, you're so far from home. And this is what I love about sport. Like when I lived in New York and everything, GAA brings people together. Yeah. So there's people from all over Australia coming to watch these games.
Yeah. Irish people came to follow Cora, even they didn't know anything about the team. They came to watch her match.
Absolutely. So it was said from a professional out, see again, they said the setup, what's involved, commit to that level to play at from these women. And some of these women out there for the Giants, had kids too, had to go who were originally from Melbourne, who were playing in Sydney. That level of commitment for Cora to get off a plane and go training literally that day, which is what was expected.
She did.
That was pretty phenomenal. So I'm waiting for my contract to come through, but I think
we just talked about it there. Sarah Rowe, who plays football for Mayo, another Mayo footballer, has just announced that she's going to Collingwood next year, and it's sort of pre-season, so it allows them to do it. But Shauna reckons that she could have been a contender.
Oh, definitely. I think the Giants ran out of credit. I'm just waiting for the call now.
Well, look, we'll come back to the actual detail and the release of that and everything. But beside you is Mary O'Connor, who, if anybody follows Camogie, will know what an unbelievably brilliant player she was all her life. Won 7 All-Ireland Camogie All-Irelands, am I right?
Yep.
I'm not leaving any out now.
No, you're good.
And 5 in football, just, because she was a bit bored at the other time of the year. But Mary, could you ever have dreamed of a time where there would be documentary features being made on female athletes? We saw a brilliant one last year also, if I don't know whether any of you have seen it, the brilliant one on the Dublin women's football, the Girls in Blue. Really worth a look as well, you'll find it. Could you ever imagine a time like that, Mary?
I suppose growing up, no. I grew up in a family of 6 brothers and 2 girls, so obviously I knew no different. I used to play with the boys underage up until I was 13. That was my outlet. And growing up in a rural area, it was Gaelic games or nothing. There was nothing else to play, so we played that. But it's funny you say that, because when we were going for the first 5 in a row with Cork, we were approached about doing a documentary.
Were you?
And we had a few team meetings about it, and we were just wondering, would we like to have it for prosperity, whatever?
Yeah.
And eventually we came to the decision, we said, no, we just want to concentrate on our football. And if people remember back, we won that All-Ireland by a point. And that year we should have lost that year against Dublin. So I think in hindsight,
you were glad you didn't let the cameras in.
Look, I mean, you have a bit of regret because it was such a fantastic team.
Oh, amazing.
Great people as well, and great players, great management. And it was a fantastic time in our lives. And we always reflect back on it. Actually, last December, we had a kind of a get-together of the players who had since retired, and it was nice to have the chats, and we were still singing the same songs and telling the stories.
Right.
That's important as well.
Oh, that's what sport is about.
Communality,
and interesting enough that you should say it, because the first really good book about women's sport in Ireland, I mean, I think probably the best one that's been written so far, was written by Mary White, a Cork journalist, about that team.
Would you believe I never read it?
Have you not? Oh,
and I know I contributed to it.
It's called Relentless, and for listeners and viewers, it's really well worth to read, because she really got inside the team, which is exactly what you were trying to do here.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that it was there, but now we are seeing so much more exposure, whether it's through the hockey, whether it's live coverage of the TV. And as somebody who's first of all, you worked for the Camogie Association for a good few years.
Yeah, I had 12 great years with the Camogie Association, had many roles there, and I really enjoyed my time. But this opportunity came up at the Federation of Irish Sport, and I thought it was the right time in my career to move into it. The Federation of Irish Sport essentially is an advocacy body. We have 72 national governing bodies of sport who are members of the Federation, including the Camogie Association, the IRFU, the FAI, down to the Judo Association, Olympic Handball and so on. So they're all members of the Federation, along with 26 of the 29 local sports partnerships in the country. And what we do with those is obviously we try and help them, resource them, provide services for them. But, you know, the sports policy was launched in July, and the Federation of Irish Sport, long before I became CEO, had asked for a policy on sport back in 2012. And that's important because that gives a roadmap. It's a big document. There's 57 actions over 8 sections, and it's really, really important for me in terms of off-the-field activities for the summer. It was a real highlight because in the line of work I'm in, it gives us an opportunity then to really see where we want sport in Ireland to go, to help the likes of Nikki and her team and so on. So, and in that sports policy, actually, women in sport is mentioned an awful lot as being an underrepresented gradient. So that's a positive, because if it's at government level, that means change can happen.
Yeah, and the policy, to just explain to our listeners, it's a 10-year plan for sport in Ireland, and it covers everything from participation levels, young sport, old sport, disabled sport, everything, all the way up to elite levels and how we fund elite levels. And again, if you know, nobody likes reading big long documents, but actually it's a really interesting read. I know I'm a nerd, but it is an interesting read. And that's the sort of thing that Mary's group are working at as well, because they are putting pressure on the government to maintain their commitment to sport, which is really, really important.
And I think, to be fair, Sport Ireland have been doing an awful lot of work on women in sport since 2004, and put an awful lot of say, resources and funding into funding NGBs to develop programmes, along with the likes of Sarah Keane and the Olympic Council of Ireland, who for many years obviously have been advocating for women in sport. So all that coming together is important, and it's a testament to the work that they have done that this policy is coming out as well.
It is. It's almost like it's a perfect storm at the moment. And then when you get successes on the field like you had, Nikki, that is such a boost as well, because it drives it on to the politicians to say, look what we can do. And that's why you should be doing all of that. Mary, the Federation of Irish Sport are actually involved already, in conjunction with the Olympic Council, if I'm not wrong, you can correct me, in trying to find some thing like in Britain, This Girl Can, some initiative that's going to drive women's sport forward. Tell us just briefly what you can about that at the moment.
Yeah, we held an event in March and we invited key stakeholders in Irish sport, with particular reference to females, and that was a really well attended event, and we had a lot of note taking to take from that, and all those notes have been taken on board, and there's a lot of work going on. But Sport Ireland had initiated a review of women in sport under the leadership of Sarah O'Shea and Lisa Clancy. So we're waiting until that comes out, and obviously trying to align our views and so on. So look, it's all good. We're all working in the same direction.
So there's basically two different bodies, if you like, have decided that they want to drive women's sport on with some initiatives. Ye decided, and then the Sport Ireland are doing one as well, and we're waiting then to see what will come out of that. But we are looking towards a big initiative to drive women's sport on in the future. Yeah,
I mean, look, I think there's an awful lot of work going on behind the scenes, and obviously you don't see the fruition of that work until it's actually publicised and so on. So just but rest assured, the event just didn't happen. There's been an awful lot of work happening, and obviously the successes off on the field have really helped build that case as well. But as I said, I can't underestimate the importance of the sports policy document in assisting the work that we're doing behind the scenes.
And Nikki, do you understand how important that is, and are you encouraged by hearing that sort of stuff is also happening?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything that can help women in sport going forward is exactly what we want, and after the success we've had, all we want for our team is to be included and to help see it go forward.
I didn't see anything specific about motorsport in that. I think you're going to have to get...
Well, I did notice you said driving female talent, so...
Pardon the pun.
If we can include racing drivers in there.
Yeah, you'll have to get the racing drive. You'll have to get the motorsport element in, because it is an area where women are really underrepresented, I think.
Just on that, Cliona, sorry, just to say that, you know, the stuff that Nikki and her team have achieved is really important, but I think for all the NGBs, it's about creating those pathways for those players in the sport, but also emerging talent in those sports. So, for instance, you look at the athletics, you look at Phil Healy, you look at Sarah Healy, what they've achieved in the athletics this year. It's about supporting those NGBs to support those athletes as they emerge, because a lot of them who are the under 18s, 19s, international athletes going into college, you know, they have difficult things to manoeuvre, and it's about supporting them and ensuring that they get the opportunity to perform on the world stage at adult level, just like Nikki has.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a minute, because making that jump from junior success to senior success is a big it's a big, difficult area for men and women in international sport. Just before we move on, we're going to take another few videos. Again, back to Mara Nitrasik's talk with the captains from Sunday's All-Ireland finals.
I'm Sarah Harrington and I'm the Cork Intermediate captain.
When we think of Cork Camogie, we think of successes and millions of titles in a row. That's the senior league though, and perhaps people don't often realise there's an intermediate team who've been fighting really hard and have had to deal with some huge heartbreaks in recent history.
Yeah, so over the last 2 years I suppose we've been very unlucky when it comes to the All-Ireland. So we're hoping that this year it's third time lucky and that this will be our year come All-Ireland final day.
One of the greatest rivalries in Irish sport at the moment is, of course, Cork and Kilkenny's in the Camogie. Aoife Murray, you're captain this year, and the rivalry goes on to another chapter.
Yeah, I suppose it goes on to another year. Look, I suppose rivalries are great to have in sport, and it kind of builds it up to be a great final, to have ourselves and Kilkenny in it. Everybody else probably enjoys it more than ourselves and Kilkenny at this stage.
Jackie Horgan, Kerry Camogie.
Now, I didn't realise this until I was speaking to you today. You play for Lixna, that's your club, and you're also the county team, and you've reached an All-Ireland junior final. That's a huge achievement.
Yeah, so I suppose Kerry Camogie and Kerry Hurling, I suppose Kerry's known as a football county. So I think some people in Kerry don't even know we play Camogie. But so I suppose we're all from different parishes in Kerry, but the Camogie club name is actually Clanmorris, but it's made up of girls from Lixna, Causwick and Miley, Ballyduff, all that. So there's only one senior club team, so the girls who play on the club team are the county team as well. So it's a club county team with a few extra who don't play the county.
That is a massive achievement to get to an All-Ireland final, despite the fact that you have a tiny little patch of Kerry to call your own.
Yeah, it's surreal. Like, I mean, I started playing Camogie in 2015, I think, and like we had a good year that year, and it's just come on leaps and bounds since. Like, it's actually unbelievable. Like, we're the only Kerry county team to make it to Croke Park this year, and some people didn't even know we existed, but now they do know we exist.
Jackie is brilliant, and she told me, I met her at the press lunch earlier this week with Liberty, that her whole family are football people, and she's the only hurling person, Camogie person in the family. And what happened was one of her best friends was going down to play Camogie once when she was about 14 or 15, and she went down with her and she fell in love with the game. So that just shows you where sport can take you, and the fascinating story of sport. We're here today off the benches here and coming to you live from the Liberty Insurance offices in Blanchardstown in Dublin, and we're here to promote Liberty Insurance's Camogie Made Me campaign that showcases how the skills that you learn in the game can be applied to other aspects of your life. Whether you're an athlete, a player, or a coach or a manager, it all transfers across. We're just going to go back because, Mary, you brought up something really interesting here, and I think all of you have something to contribute on this. Is there was just such an amazing summer of Irish sport. I mean, obviously the hockey team stole the summer, but so much of the successes that we had at international level this summer were young women. And not so young women as well. And even in the last few weeks, right, successes on the international stage. Irish Paralympic athletes in track, in cycling, in field, in swimming, all won either European or world titles. Jenny Egan, just recently, the Irish canoeist, she's a friend of Off the Benches, we've had her in before. Jenny won a bronze at the World Championship, the first time an Irish canoeist has ever done that. And also, only in the last few weeks, a young girl from Wicklow, a girl called Lara Gillespie, who is a sensational young cyclist, won not one, but two, and almost won a third medal at the World Junior Track Championships. And she can do cyclocross and road. She is an incredible young athlete, and I think she's a really good hockey player as well, somebody told me, so there might be a battle for her in the future. But the big question I think always is for all of us is making the transition. Even athletes say it themselves to us often on Off the Bench. They say, do you know, when you leave school and you go to college, it's actually quite hard to keep your sport at that level. There's a lot of demands on you. So maybe, Marie, what are your thoughts on how do we maintain the success and bring those brilliant junior athletes through to senior level?
Yeah, the numbers are obviously quite worrying when we do see research and how many girls then don't maintain sport after a certain age, especially the college age. The drop-off is massive. I think one thing that helps is seeing their role models, seeing the likes of Nikki, seeing the Dublin football team winning, like getting to actually see getting the access, getting the documentaries. They'll see Cora. you know, when we were young, a lot of us, we didn't have the number of role models that we have now. We had like the Sonia and the Derval, but now you're seeing girls from every single sport. You're seeing them on television.
Brilliant.
You know, you're seeing them on Instagram. You're seeing them. You're hearing them on the radio. You know, there's all the social platforms are helping. I think the more that women's sports grows, I think that the more people will be encouraged to keep it up, because, like, it's cool now to do sport, I think. Like, and you see girls of all different shapes, sizes. You see girls who are feminine. You see the tomboys. You're just getting your mind, I think, for these girls is being opened up to. Just because you play sport doesn't mean that you can't be a motor car driver as well, or you know, you can't go out on your Friday night. You need to have all this opened up to you, and that helps. But I think as well, like, I did an interview with Amber Barrett, the Ireland soccer girl international recently. I think we always talk about, can you call them girls or women, or whatever.
Always a debate on off the bench.
I always call everyone girls anyway.
We all call each other girls,
But like, she was great now. She came out and she spoke about her battle with her weight, and she brought it up, and she wanted to talk about it, and she wanted to say, look, it's okay. I know that I'm not at my ideal weight. I'm not at my optimum weight for performance. And she wanted to highlight that that's where she was now. She was going to work really hard in the gym, that she was going to go training so that she could be a professional footballer, or, you know, maybe go on someday and play for Manchester United. She's in college at the moment and she wants to do her best for Ireland. And she wanted to put that out there because she knows that she's a role model, and she wants to be able, other girls to be able to say, oh, look, there's Amber Barrett feeling the exact same way that I'm feeling about it.
And to be comfortable if they don't look like the perfect stereotypical athlete.
And to say, look, that there's a healthy way to do something about it, to make yourself feel better, to perform. And I think all these stories and all this access and all these events and all these documentaries will all help girls to stick with it. And we also hear an awful lot of girls as well telling the story about giving up for a while and coming back, which I think is okay as well. Just because you take a break for a while, you can come back, you can pick it up again. And hearing all these things, I think, Cliona, is brilliant.
And a lot of the sporting organisations, including Camogie, have ways now for people to go back into the sport, and even for people who've never played it to go back in later life, which is fantastic, in a less competitive way sometimes. Shawnee, you want to come in there?
Yeah, I just on that, I think that there is a responsibility as well, like in terms of marketing and media, you know, for like that. And like, cool is a good thing, is the right sort of term for it. You know, I think looking at how the production values of things for women as well, and not just that, just looking at you there, the bus went by, and I don't know if you've seen, there's a drinks campaign that are supporting the senior men's Dublin team there, and there's 3 male footballers at the front of that campaign, and there's 1 female, and she's right at the back. And I think representation in the media as well, and giving us a fair crack, is what's needed. You know, like, there's no reason why she shouldn't be at the front of the media campaign next to the Dublin footballer there. Yeah. You know,
and that's what we're seeing in these videos.
Yeah, and the production values as well. And I know that's
beautiful in this.
But that's what I think, because if you look at stuff on Instagram, one thing that I really stuck to the last couple of years, because I have nieces who are all in gymnastics and are all in GA, is strong is the new skinny. And I think women that are encouraged to be strong, like I get told all the time, you're really bossy. But it seems funny, but you wouldn't use that term for a male.
I get it too.
But you know what I mean? I am a female, but I am, and that's okay. And it's the same with women in sport. We're allowed to take that role. It should be fine. And I think that, like, with the marketing campaigns and everything like that, I think that women need to be given those platforms.
Yeah, it's really interesting, that phrase bossy. It's used about women all the time. It's very rarely used about men.
Never.
But the phrase leadership is used about men all the time. Isn't that interesting? And I think, Mary, leadership is fascinating to me, and empowering women to become leaders in business and sport. And we've seen through this campaign, this Camogie Made Me, that's exactly the idea, which is that if you learn these skills in sport, you bring them into your life. You're a leader on the field, you're a leader off the field, you can cope with things. It's really unusual, and we're quite unusual in Ireland. You are the CEO of the Federation of Irish Sport. Sarah Keane is the CEO of the Irish Olympic Council. Michelle Carpenter, a woman from Limerick, became the CEO of Irish Rowing this year. Even Joy Neville has become such an icon in terms of refereeing. Are we unusual in Ireland in terms of allowing women or helping women to get into positions of leadership, which is where you are, and what can we do to do that more?
Yeah, like, I mean, and to add to that list, Mary Malone, who's the CEO of Paralympics
Mary
as well.
Malone as well, exactly.
You know,
yeah,
I mean,
another one.
I suppose, look, from my point of view, there was never any obstacle that was put in my way. I mean, I wanted
Never.
something and I went and I got it. I mean, and that's not being bullish or it's not being self-important. It's just like I wanted to try and go for the CEO job at Federation of Irish Sport. I went for it. I got it. I never saw any of those real obstacles myself, but I do think that women in leadership have a huge responsibility about empowering other women to come up on the platform as well. And that's something that I'm really, really strong on. Like I've had some fantastic male people where I work with in the male environment who've been really, and I use the words funnily with them, enlightened, because they saw potential in me and they assisted me. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that out there, and I think we need to ensure that that opportunity arises for more and more women in Irish society, that they believe that if they want to achieve something that they can do it, but it's about empowering them and educating them as well. And I think going back to Marie's point about the role models, that's so important. You need to be able to see these people as coaches, as referees, and so on, as administrators. Like, I mean, obviously Sarah Keane has been out in the room for a long time in terms of the position she holds as CEO of Swim Ireland, but also as the president of the Olympic Council. And that's important to recognise. And I think going back to an initial point there around the NGBs and the work that they're doing around women in sport, that can't be underestimated. I grew up in an era where sport was very rigid. It was competitive. The best played, the rest didn't play. But now all sports, male and female, they're becoming a lot more holistic in how they incorporate people of all abilities and all determinations to stay involved in their sport. Some people like the social aspect. Yeah. They need to be maintained as well. I mean, I would often say that some of the best coaches that I have had weren't fantastic players simply because they had empathy with the child who couldn't do the skill. They understood. They understood because they had the same. Whereas somebody like, say, who had played at a high level probably couldn't break it down to see, well, why can't you do the skill? So that's important as well. But we need to have role models. We need to have more people in leadership positions. But we also need to take responsibility. And that's everybody in this room, as brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, to take responsibility to ensure that these girls are given the opportunity and the platform and the pathway. And I mean, the Sport Ireland Institute are doing fantastic work with emerging elite athletes in trying to show them the way. We talk about talent IDing emerging athletes, but they're also talent IDing emerging coaches. Yeah, which is a key thing. It's been really, really important.
Yeah, and they're doing amazing work on coaching. And actually, I think personally that this success that we're getting, I've seen it in track and field, and Marie comes from a track and field family, so she knows all about it as well. I think actually it's the empowerment of good coaches as well that has been key to developing our talent. Like we've seen that young 4x100 team win a medal, at the Irish relay team win a medal at the World Juniors. I mean, that is such a high standard. They were second. That's a phenomenal standard to reach, but a lot of it has to do with coaching. And we also say on Off the Bench all the time, men and women. Men contribute just as much to women's sport as women do, and are absolutely crucial in the area of leadership and mentoring as well. Marie?
We've seen all the research as well, Cliona, about why girls drop out, and one of the big reasons is because they don't get encouraged enough. Yeah. And another reason as well is that the fear of being judged. So I think when you know, we were talking about the coaches again, and like you can't undervalue that little bit of encouragement that you can give to somebody, and that goes to, you know, in work, in sport, in every aspect of life. And it's easy to do it, you know, and I think it's just normalising all these things, normalising women in sport, normalising women in positions like Mary's as well, and Sarah Keane, so that there is a pathway. And Tracy Kennedy's another one down in Cork as well. Yeah,
Cork County Board chairperson. And it's interesting, Shauna, exactly what Shauna was saying. Like, she's in that position where she can make videos, so she is driving that. So you do need to get women into positions sometimes to make that change happen, and then the change very often happens very quickly. Nikki, I was curious, have you in your career at any point, either as an athlete or in motorsport, have you encountered sexism in any way or shape, form?
No, not like, you know, when I've worked in the team, they've always been very welcoming. They treat me as another data engineer, and you know, they, as little experience that I had when I first went in, they backed me and they said, you know what, when you're finished hockey, you can come back and work for us full time. So they were very welcoming to me. But no, I think the encouraging messages like the girls have been talking about is really important. Like, I know as a player and a person a couple of years ago, I would have lacked a lot of confidence.
I heard you say that.
So generating that self-belief is a huge part of how you extract the best out of yourself. And, you know, I use the hashtag the best you can be, because everyone's best is different. So try never to compare to what anyone else is doing. You have your own best, but doesn't mean you have to set a limit at any stage. So yeah, trying to extract the best that you can be would be an encouraging.
It's a great message, and it can work for people who are involved in recreational sport as well as elite sport. It doesn't have to be, as Mary said, it doesn't have to be elite sport all the time. Not everybody is as competitive, and trust me, as Mary O'Connor, nobody is as competitive as Mary O'Connor on a pitch. I'm laughing at the idea of you going for a job and thinking I'm going for that, and I'm thinking I wouldn't stand in your way. She was a phenomenally competitive person. I have never, seen very few GA players across both genders who were as competitive on a field as you were, and that was part of your talent.
Good. Just on that, I think when I reflected on my career, when I was finished, I'm retired nearly 8 years now from intercounty Camogie football, but when I reflect on that, I think what really hardened our resolve, especially among the football team, was that nobody really knew what we were doing at that time, and this is like, I'm retired, let's say it's 2001 to 2005, that era. We trained so hard. We were training 6 nights a week, looking after ourselves. There was no kind of airs and graces about what we got. It was a pitch, it was footballs, and that was it. And Ryan used to drive this butterbox car down to training, and every now and then you start playing Simply the Best coming down. I say people thought, who were these ramshackle? But we had such a fantastic bond. Yeah. But we were determined that when we hit the field, we'd perform, simply because we felt at the end of the day it was only ourselves, the management, and our close family and friends really knew the effort it took. So and thank God that's turning now. Yeah, I was just going to say, I've had this discussion with women before. Sometimes because nobody else cares, but you care passionately, you care nearly even more. Yeah, you did, yeah. And I know, Nikki, you had a similar idea, didn't you?
I think we can relate to that as well as the Irish hockey team, because nobody cared about us. I mean, we were second lowest ranked team going in there. Like, nobody knew what we'd been doing. They didn't really care. They're like, oh, it's Ireland. Like, tick the box. We'll beat them. Tick the box. Yeah. So I completely understand, and like that, we had this togetherness within the team that we believed in each other, and we believed in ourselves enough that we didn't really care what other people thought about us. We knew that we could go out, and if we performed to the level that we know we can perform, we can cause an upset. Yeah, and that was really telling, I think. And we've often said that when you get as much attention and media attention as men, that creates different pressures, and sometimes women have to react to that, because very often it's actually easy for you because you are under the radar slightly, and then you have to adjust when you go above the radar, and probably the Irish hockey team are going to have to do that. Yeah. Just while we're on the subject, tell us about how did the Mariah Carey Christmas song become your song, and tell us about what happened in London, because when you were doing your warm-up, it's a great story. So we a couple of younger girls on the team had said, the night before, I mean, it was so exciting for them. It was exciting for all of us to get to a World Cup, but especially at 18 or 19, your first couple of years in, you're going to a World Cup. They said it felt like it was Christmas Eve. There was a bit of delay between games, a couple of days that we weren't used to. So when the night before came around, they just got so excited that they said it felt like Christmas Eve. And so I think it was the quarter-final, we didn't really expect to get to a quarter-final. And we were doing our mobility, which is sort of in this open area in the middle of London, and all these commuters are on their way to work. I love this image. We're mid-yoga stretch, and the song comes on, All I Want for Christmas. And, on quarter-final day, we were getting these funny looks from people kind of going like, who are these people? Like, what? Why are they singing Carey in the middle of July? In the middle of London, in the middle of the park. And so, then we win, and we do it again for the semi-final, and a few people then start to recognise, and they come up, and they're like, oh, well done, we saw yesterday the game. And then anyone who was Irish just wanted to be associated with us. Like, they just come up and was like, I'm from Dublin, I'm from Galway, well done, girls, you were brilliant. And by the time the final came around, everyone that was walking through knew exactly who we were and knew exactly. Amazing. So nobody knew who this team were, and by the end of the week, that second week, everybody knew who you were. Yeah. And at the homecoming in Dublin in Dame Street, they sang they sang All I Want for Christmas. And was it Lena Tice or which one of them? The two younger ones, Zoe Wilson. They're great fun. One of them tweeted to Mariah Carey, who tweeted back. Oh, no, nobody tweeted her. She just picked up on it and tweeted to us. So brilliant. Wow. So you've now got Mariah Carey as a fan as well. Yeah, it's a fantastic story. She's actually behind here. She's going. Yeah, we're going to bring her out any minute now. She's actually going to do it. Close the show for us. It is fantastic. And just before we finish up, I was looking at research last week. I think I passed it on to you. Shocking research, like body image, mental health, all of these things. Sport plays such a huge part in it. There's some research that's just come out in England that 1 in 4 girls aged 14 has self-harmed in Britain at the moment. Now, that is absolutely shocking, and that is a reflection of,
peer pressure, social media, mental health, all of those issues. And the research was linked with the fact that there was less, one of the things they felt was a factor in their less mental health or less healthier in that area was the fact that there's less sport in schools, which is really interesting. So all of this, and it is all reflected, I think, in these beautiful Camogie Made Me videos. The Colette Dormer one with her mum who suffered cancer is absolutely beautiful and really, really well worth a look. It would be remiss of me, seeing as we're all here in Liberty Insurance's office in Blanchardstown, not to talk about the All-Ireland finals, which are on Sunday. We have a treble header, and we won't go into them in too much detail, but we're going to ask our panellists who have an interest in Camogie. And Shawnee, you've played, as you said. Was it Crumlin?
Played for Good Counsel, captain Dublin, yeah.
Good woman. Well, there you go. Who do you fancy to win the senior final? And if there's a player that you think people should watch out for, who is it?
Oh no, I'm not picking a player. The chances are I'll bump into them and then they're like, "What are you saying to me?" Do you know what? I go to the finals every year, and for me, the one thing I said is just to see the strength and conditioning of the athletes and their fitness. So I'm just looking forward to a great game. Genuinely.
Cork Kilkenny, Mary. Is there a particular what's the word? Go on. Is there a narrative in it? What's the narrative in it, do you think?
Look, from a Cork point of view, obviously being totally biased. I watched both semi-finals and I just thought Cork were awesome. I thought they would be under pressure, having lost Rena, 18 All-Ireland medals, that experience.
Huge.
Emer Sullivan, another great player, has got player of the match in a couple of All-Ireland finals, got married this year, hasn't come back. But they were absolutely fantastic in the semi-final. Galway made it really difficult for Kilkenny.
Yeah, they had a tough game against them.
I just think the matchups are going to be really interesting on Sunday. I mean, from the club I'm from, thankfully, we have 3 girls on the first 15.
Who is it?
Chloe Sigerson is playing wing back. She got player of the match in the semi-final.
Brilliant. She's really come through this year.
Great young player. Laura Tracy's full back, really pivotal position. And then obviously you've got Hannah Looney as well, and we've got a few on the intermediate team. So it's great for our club because we'd be a small rural club, so it's fantastic. But I mean, I actually have a story about Kerry Camogie. When I started working for Camogie, one of the first jobs I was given was to go down and establish Camogie in Kerry. And actually in 2006, I established 4 clubs in Kerry with the help of Munster Council at the time. And it's fantastic for me, as now having moved on, to see that they're contesting an All-Ireland Junior final. Don't underestimate the passion in North Kerry for hurling and Camogie. It's absolutely phenomenal. It would actually be a testament. Anybody in Kilkenny and those counties really, really love the game of hurling and Camogie. And so all those girls have brothers who play. Yeah. So it's fantastic. And that heartland of North Kerry, just don't underestimate. So it's fantastic for them, and hopefully we'll bring Camogie on more in the county over the next couple of years.
They won a Division 4 title a couple of years ago, and they won a Division 3 title this year. So they're coming and coming and coming, and it is just brilliant. And for you, who worked as in the developmental area for Camogie, that is just fantastic to see.
Yeah, it is. And you have the likes of Patrice Diggins, who was won Ashburns with UL, and has been a starring player for UL. And she wasn't just a player; she was their free taker. She was their go-to person. And no disrespect to Kerry, but there was no Camogie in Kerry pre-2006. So it just shows you when you bring a game to new audiences and new opportunities for girls to play, they will achieve,
It's such a great game. Patrice Diggins, and she won player of the match in the Sigerson in the 3rd level final in the top level of Camogie. She's just a brilliant player. Marie, I'm gonna although we do know you have GA credentials, Nikki.
I do. Actually, we had a player on the Irish team who played for Kilkenny for a long time.
Who's that?
Anya Connery.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so...
And the skill transfer is probably there automatically. Oh
yeah,
anyway.
I mean she probably played more Camogie than she did hockey when she played on the hockey pitch.
And you played.
No one could defend her.
You probably played. You played a bit of Gaelic football.
I played a bit of Gaelic football. I actually did play. It was mixed. It was when I was in 6th class in primary school, and it was boys and girls. And I remember playing. We played with these indoor sticks. This principal was just trying to bring GAA into our school, so. We'd never played, and I was the only girl on the team because it was just a mixed team, but none of the other girls in my class wanted to play. And I actually won player of the tournament. It was between 3 small primary schools that had never played before.
You had it already, Nikki. If hockey hadn't been your success story, then Camogie could have been. The medal. She still, and by the way, she did bring us the medal today, so you'll have to show it to us. And she brought it to Electric Picnic.
Got into the VIP area with it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you get into the VIP area with it?
We did, yeah. Front stage at Bewitched.
It was actually a funny story from
I love it. Go on.
Electric Picnic. I was at Electric Picnic and it started raining.
There's the other one who was at Electric Picnic.
I was going to see picture this, right, but it started raining, so I was with a group of friends, all of whom are from Kilkenny, so we went to the Johnny Logan concert bit in the throwback stage, which was quite hilarious because What's Another Year came on, and I just looked to my Kilkenny friends and said, that'll be next Sunday. Needless to say, I got a bit of abuse.
I bet you did. Marie, last word to you on the Camogie final at the weekend, the senior final particularly.
I'm on Breach Cork rewatch. I want to first of all know if she's going to be playing. There's a good chance I say she might be starting. She'd be an amazing person to
explain
to
to people who don't know who Breach Cork is why it's such an extraordinary thing that she has come back.
She had a baby in March, at the very end of March, and she came back. I think she was doing training by herself for a couple of weeks, or probably maybe since she had the baby. But she came back before the semi-final, and she came on towards the end, but she is one of the most amazing players. How many?
Like Mary, an amazing 17 All-Ireland. She has.
Yeah.
So the thing is, would she come back and win the 18th to match Rena Buckley?
Yeah.
And they were buddies all their lives. They played camogie and football for Cork all their lives, and they are two sensational players. So the notion that Breach Corkery has come out of retirement and back into this Cork team for this is just sensational, and is one of the reasons why everybody is so excited about this final. I just go on, Marie, sorry.
I was going to say, while I was up here, something dawned on me. I think we've hit a milestone that I was always hoping that we would get to. On Sunday, Cora was the co-com for the football.
That's right.
And while that was amazing, it was the first time that a woman did that. What I loved about it was that nobody really spoke about it. It wasn't a big deal. That we've got to the stage where a woman is in a position like that, and all of a sudden it's not a news story. For me to have come that far and to be there, and for not to have column inches that a woman has finally achieved this is brilliant, because Joy Neville always says at the referee, when you get to the stage where a woman achieving something isn't a news story, we've come so far.
Then we really have equality then. Yeah, and that is a brilliant thing. Cora was to explain to you, she was the co-commentator on the men's All-Ireland Senior Football Final, which
and
is
nobody
fantastic.
talked about it.
And nobody mentioned it, and it wasn't a big deal, and nobody mentioned it. So before we finish then, Shauna, please tell us, when can we see this new documentary on Cora? We're dying to see it.
We have a special screening on September the 11th in the Stella, and then it's airing on TG Cahir on September the 16th, directly after the Ladies All-Ireland final.
Oh, fantastic. So put the tape
the next documentary is Mary coming back out of retirement. She's actually playing on Sunday.
The only thing you're going to be missing in that is the video of her at Electric Picnic.
Oh, no, there's always evidence.
We need to get that. Nikki, when are you heading back to the States?
17th September.
All right. And when do you think you'll be home then to train with the Irish team again?
January,
okay.
yeah.
Well, look, we wish you every success in the motorsport as well as the hockey. It's very exciting, and obviously you're going to be looking at a World Cup qualification for Tokyo 2020.
Olympic, yeah.
Olympic,
yeah, that starts next June. It's like a 2-part process. So the first part in June is we go into this like World League structure, so it's anyone who's not in the Pro League, which is the fancy league with people with all the money have to play in. Yeah. So we won't be in that. And we'll play in a World League type series where we need to finish top 2. And then from that, hopefully with our new ranking position, we'll get a home draw in October, and we'll get 2 games then to qualify for Tokyo.
And Marie, again, that series, small docu-series on the iPlayer for RTE
it's going to be the RTE player in October.
October, okay. We are really passionate on Off the Bench. We often say you have to be on the sidelines. We need people to go and follow women's sport, because we've talked about this constantly, and you heard Shauna talking about the need for her even to get sponsorship from Lidl to make the documentaries. But if people don't go to watch women's sport, then it doesn't attract as much media coverage, because I think people aren't interested. And then if people think it's not interested, sponsors won't get involved. If all those things happen, if we go and get out and watch games, sponsors follow because they see people are interested, media follows because and then the whole thing sort of just snowballs on itself, and it creates, better facilities, better training opportunities for athletes, and better opportunities for all young girls to get involved in sport at any level. So one of the hashtag for Camogie for this weekend, because they want to get a big crowd at the All-Ireland finals, is hashtag Go Together. They're hoping to get 25,000 people at the Camogie finals this Sunday. With the lineup that they've got, Cork and Kilkenny in the senior final, absolute grudge match of the highest order. Last year's was a thriller. Cork stole it at the last minute. The intermediate game is Cork in the 3rd year in a row going not to lose it. So the intermediate final is between Cork and Down, and the junior final, as you saw, is between Kerry and Shawnee, you'll have a huge interest in that one,
big time.
Dublin. So we appeal to everybody to go there, hashtag go together, be there, support them from the sidelines, because that's really where women's sport, for it to move on further from what we had this summer, that's where we need to go. Just before we finish up, I just want to say our thank yous. Obviously, thanks a million to Liberty for hosting us here in their offices in Blanchardstown. Thanks to everybody on our production crew over here. So we have Paul, Colin Graham, Sue Murphy and Seifra O'Donovan. Thanks, guys, for putting it together. It has been such a pleasure to have this panel and this quality of panel here for you today. So we want to point out that all of our previous episodes for Off the Bench, you can get them. We have a podcast link on Off the Ball. So if you go into offtheball.com and you go into the podcast link, you will find the series link for all Off the Bench's podcasts in there, so you can see our previous episodes in there. Big thanks again to Liberty, to our live audience, but especially to our brilliant panel, Marie Crowe, Nikki Daly, Mary O'Connor and Shauna Keogh.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.